This story begins in a cold and unknown forest, to survive in which was a real success for the traveler. Even the highest masters bypassed such a place so as not to experience their fate once again. Only a madman who lost the value of life could go to such a dangerous territory. A miracle in this forest was wandered by one young man, the heir to the great clan of the Holy Sword, to whom the great future was prophesied. A boy named Yu Baek-jun was one of 5 children who received the right to inherit, but as often happens, not everyone was ready to divide the power equally. He fled in the snow without turning back, not understanding how he ended up in this forest and why someone pursues him. Wounded, he continued to run, hoping to get out of the forest and find answers to his questions. Because of the blizzard and snow covered with snow, he does not notice the arrow flying directly into it. She pierces the young man's leg. It was already difficult to run through the cold forest, and now, with a wounded leg, it became unbearably painful. Baek-jun, despite the pain, clenching his teeth, continues to run to escape. But the pain was so strong that having taken a couple of steps, he falls on the snowy ground. It seemed to be over. He was wounded and surrounded by people who wish his death. But through the blizzard, a silhouette familiar to Baek-jun appears, and hope for salvation flares up in his soul. Failing closer, the stranger calls him a master and says that it is better to die quietly than trying to survive. A man standing in front of him with a cold and sharp sword in his hand was not a stranger at all. Baek-jun, looking around, does not understand when everything went wrong. Perhaps if he made a different choice that day, everything would have turned out differently, and he would not become the character of the game. But the story returns us a little back, on the day when a strange proposal appeared before the young gamer to conclude a deal. The essence was to go through a game called the Way of the Heroes in an unusual way, and in return, any of his desires would be fulfilled. The boy took it as a joke. He saw this for the first time and did not quite understand the intentions and goals of the sender. Having decided to ignore the message, he continued to rejoice at his favorite game. Today he managed to pass her for a new character, Yu Baek-jun. But he notices something strange online in the game was extremely small, as if he remained the only player. It was a game where the gates opened between the worlds, from which strong monsters, unquenchable to everyone, came out. The action took place in the modern world, controlled by hunters fighting with these monsters, and the hunters, in turn, were ruled by players. The premiere of this game caused real excitement thanks to the thoughtful world and exciting adventures. And also, thanks to hidden elements and 5 different characters that differed from each other. She was popular, despite the fact that it was single, but it did not last long. A year after the release, everything changed. Online in the game fell so much that it was considered dead. There were only 5 characters in the game, and at their death, the player had to start all over the beginning. The difficulty was just hellish. According to the statistics of passages, except for the first character and protagonist Han Chan-woo, the other was able to go through the game. But there was one gamer who was the first to play for one of the most difficult characters, Yu Baek-jun, and was our young hero. Suddenly, a notice with a very interesting content appears before him. It said that to continue the game, you need to collect a party from other players. A prerequisite is to go through the game for each character. The young man was upset, realizing that the game had come to an end. At least 10 people played before it, and now only he remained. Suddenly, the leader of the chat room, surprised by his presence, joins him in the lobby, because before that he kicked everyone out of the group. He offers to make a deal. If the guy passes the game proposed in the way, he will fulfill one of his desires. The boy began to guess. What can he do? Can make him beautiful, rich, but is it all? And what will happen if he fails? The stranger only said that he had not yet come up with what would happen in case of failure, and asked if the gamer was able to pass the game completely. Although he went through her for all the characters, he decided not to brag about it. After all, he had not yet had time to boast of others. Nevertheless, the young gamer is being decided. He accepts the deal and agrees to pass the game by his way. The stranger thanks him for his participation and calls him special, not like everyone else. Suddenly, the world around begins to change. The boy notices that something is going wrong. Everything becomes blurry, as if moving away from him further. This causes severe headache. He does not understand what is happening to him. He could not imagine that he had just signed a contract with a game devil. Due to severe pain, he falls on the table and loses consciousness. In the future, he will regret repeatedly that he agreed to such a strange adventure. It would be better if he thought longer before making a choice and sign a death sentence. Now the young gamer is the character of the game Yu Baek-jun, for whom he just completed the passage. Once alone in a snowy, cold, and gloomy forest, he did not understand what was happening. His amazement knew no bounds. He was just in his room, and now he was in the body of a game character. He had not yet fully understood the situation in which he found himself, what to do, and what was waiting for him. The first thing he noticed was, of course, long hair that replaced his short haircut. But there was no time to look at himself and be surprised at what was happening. At that moment, people with swords, who did not wish him good. He was found by those who hunted him, and those who were entrusted to kill him turned out to be Shin at Hyun, his teacher. Now Yu Baek-jun was amazed. In front of him stood a character from that very game. Hyun grins ominously and resembles Baek Jun that today is a training, but not ordinary. Baek Jun does not cease to be surprised. In front of him is a fictional character, speaking exactly like in the game. And suddenly the picture changes sharply. The teacher, who must teach the student, decides to kill him, claiming that the training will be more tough than the former. The reason for this was the desire of his older brother to get the whole inheritance. Without warning, the teacher uses the technique of the sword. Hyun makes a surprised face, saying that he was aiming right in his heart, but he miraculously dodged. This became possible only thanks to the hereditary blood of the clan of the Holy Sword pulsing in his veins, despite the weak physical strength. But Hyung still intends to kill Yu Baek Jun on the orders of his brother, assuring that he was doing this for his own good, and death will be painless. The boy does not believe that all this happens in reality, that this is not a game. But he has no time to think. He is literally facing death with a scythe. The only thing that worries him is how to survive. If he does not manage to escape, he is waiting for a failure and death behind him. The pain from the wound was unbearable, especially in this cold. Feeling how blood flows down the arm, he understands. This is not a dream, is a reality, and this becomes even worse. And then he recalls the leader's message. Now this is not a game and not a dream, but a real world. Everything becomes a little clearer. Who is he, why he is here, and what he has to do. Now he is a real character of a game named Yu Baek Jun and not a boy for a monitor. Realizing this, he decides to think about the next step based on game experience. Remembering this scene in the game, he understands. The only way out is to run as quickly as possible. Run to exhaustion, without thinking about anything, just to survive. This decision surprised Hyun, but he was not going to let the boy go. Unfortunately, Yu Baek Jun failed to escape far. He was only enough for a couple of 100 meters, which was not enough. Death was already standing behind him. At Hyun, fulfilling the order, was ready to deliver a decisive blow. Watching what is happening, Yu Baek Jun decides to wait calmly. In a couple of seconds, a flock of ice wolves should appear, as in the game. The teacher, meanwhile, consoles the former student, saying that in the afterlife he will not be lonely. He will kill all his servants, including his humble servant Min. After that, he comes closer and asks the last words of Yu Baek Jun. But then the comrades, in arms of Hyun, notice something was wrong. The blizzard is intensifying. It seemed that something strange and capable of changing the course of events would be about to happen. Understanding that he is approaching, Baek Jun decides to finally send his teacher to hell. Hyun is surprised by the such impudence and stupidity of the boy. From snow-covered trees, they are attacked by a flock of ice wolves, attracted by the screams of Baek Jun, ready to tear everything that falls under the paws. But such a threat did not frighten a martial art teacher. He was not a random crook who first picked up the sword in his hands. For the master, this is just a wolf, which will not be difficult to defeat. But difficulties arose from those whom he decided to take as assistants for such a bloody task. However, this did not bother him at all, because such guys for him are just a resource that is easily replenished. The wolves, on the other hand, easily dealt with students who could not really resist due to fright. More and more ice wolves ran to their screams. There were a huge number of them. Hyun understands that passing by will not work, but before that he needs to deal with Baek Jun. But he too was not stupid and could not miss such a great opportunity to escape. The cold in a snowy forest made his way to trembling in the bones. To walk in such a blizzard is clearly not the best choice. The wounds that were inflicted at Hyun still reminded of themselves and did not let them forget. Having run away far enough, Baek Jun decides to rest at the tree to restore strength and try to bandage wounds using knowledge from the game. Nearby, he managed to collect some herbs from which he made a healing ointment, accelerating the restoration. After that, a system window appeared, which reported that he managed to create a new ointment, despite his inexperience, thanks to outstanding medicine skills. Now such notifications will become familiar to him, and in some cases they will even help to master the new world. The created ointment worked, the wounds began to heal a little, bleeding stopped, and temporary resistance to cold appeared. This can be considered a great success, because knowledge of medicine in this world is more useful than ever. Before that, the boy spent 2 years on the full passage of the game, and now he can apply the knowledge gained in reality. But even this did not change the situation. It still remained difficult, and further steps were blurred. Baek Jun is the heir to the great clan of the Holy Sword, located on Mount Sorak in Korea. The clan was founded by a skilled warrior nicknamed the God of War, who once helped to resolve the incident with the gates. But after a while he disappeared. Despite this, the clan of the Holy Sword developed rapidly thanks to the books left by him, and became one of the most authoritative in Korea. One of the 5 children with the right to inherit the family was Baek Jun. To play for the Baek of Jun and to be for them, as it turned out, for the young gamer, 2 completely different things. The second is much more complicated. The wounds, although heal, the effect will last a maximum of 30 minutes. There is almost no time for thought. Now you need to act quickly, but carefully to survive. Now each solution affects fate, making life in this world even more complicated. But in it, there is also a system of the hero's path, which allows to develop with the help of quests and other game elements. For him, this was a relief. Now he has a guideline and direction of movement. As expected, Baek Juna was at 0, and he has a long way. But joy quickly overshadowed the awareness. With such characteristics, he is an ordinary broken in this world. In addition, the path of Baek Jun begins in a cold forest and with dangerous wounds. Now he needs to be many times more vigilant and more careful. The threat from Hyun is still preserved. He has an artifact that can easily find Baek Jun. So sitting still is not the best option. It is necessary to act, despite all the difficulties that stand in front of him. Not only the present, but also the future scared. After all, it is still unknown what he needs to do in order to stay alive until the end of the back of Baek Jun. The only way out is a kind of labyrinth forest. There, perhaps, there is a chance to get out of this situation. Meanwhile, Hyung and their students still managed to defeat a flock of ice wolves and are now ready to go in search of the escaped Baek Jun. Hyun's tracking artifact suddenly shone with a bright light, pointing to the location of the back of the Jun. The next point is the Forest of Labyrinths, where everyone will have to be ready to risk their lives. Baek Jun did not spend a minute on thought. He purposefully moved to the maze, because now even every second was worth its weight in gold. It was impossible to stop. The longer he is inactive, the closer death to him. In the world of the hero, monsters are the main enemies of mankind, exterminated by hunters. The complexity varies depending on the type of gate and the monsters themselves. There are different categories of difficulties: light, difficult, complex. But there is one area that all hunters find especially heavy and avoid. This is Mount Sorak, hell on earth, where monsters built their own ecosystem and live in it like animals. This inaccessible area has become a zone that hunters bypass for the sake of their own safety. It is obvious that the current weakness of Baek Jun should not go there without protection. But Hyun's goal was to bring him to this mountain in order to destroy him in the future. Despite the fact that he taught Baek Jun from childhood, he decided to support his brothers, who secretly went against him and gave the order to kill. Simply put, the player needs to survive on these snow slopes, and return home is a standard way to go the beginning of the back of Baek Jun. But the new Baek Jun decides to act differently. He does not return to the clan's house, but goes to look for a secret place on Mount Sorak, which is not known about. Highly in the Forest of Labyrinths, the opportunity is hidden that no one knows about. On the stove it was written, "Those who do not have the courage to lose their lives, those who do not have icy composure and a wide view of the world, let them leave this place better." Hyun and his students had already approached Baek Jun and was ready to even go to such a dangerous place, just to prove his death. But unlike Baek Jun, Hyun possessed an artifact that could lead him out of the maze. He was presented to him by his older brother, Taran. He also suspected something was amiss, because Baek Jun knew from childhood and did not remember that he was so brave, as if he became a different person. Hyun finally reached the traces of Baek Jun. Since they have not yet been covered with snow, it meant that he was nearby. Having learned this, he moved forward with the students, behind Baek Jun. One of the students suspected that they seemed to walk in a circle, but this is not surprising. After all, they were in the Forest of Labyrinths, where it is impossible to determine the exact path. There were a lot of corpses in the forest, those who wandered hundreds here, or even thousands of times before their death. This is the nature of this labyrinth. If you do not want to wander here until your death, do not lose your vigilance. Baek Jun had the forces at the end, but he realized how amazing medicinal herbs were. But it was more important than another, an instinctive feeling that suggested that he could easily die. In the cold Forest of Labyrinths, you can survive only with excellent vigilance and strength. At that moment, Baek Jun realized that he was circled around his finger, and perhaps he should not agree to that deal. But now it did not matter. It is already here, and you only need to think about how to survive. After long searches, through the cold and a snowstorm, he still found what he climbed into, the deed of death. It was a cherished exit from the maze, to go through which Baek Jun still succeeded. It would seem that from that moment on, the life of Baek Jun will change, and his stay in this world will become at least a little, but easier. All that remained was to be vigilant and remain in constant concentration. But not everything was as simple and easy as he wanted. Hyun, with his non-arbitrariness, was already standing opposite him. Both sides were on the edge of the cliff, but he took a more advantageous position from Hyun, which gave him some advantage. In the end, Baek Jun decides to ask Hyun why he does this with him. Did he really become the dog of Tae's wound? He, in turn, did not deny anything, because in his opinion, the older brother is more suitable for the role of the heir to the Holy Sword clan because of his strength. Now Baek Jun made sure that absolutely everything that happened in this world is exactly like in the game. Knowing this, he could not hesitate anymore. Otherwise, the consequences of such a long expectation would not force himself to wait long. And then it began. Exhausted and bloodied, Baek Jun holds his hand behind the ground so as not to fall off his feet. But the problem was far from frostbite, but in the loss of blood. In the case of Baek Jun, quite significant. Hyun also does not lose time and decides to end everything right now, once and for all. And so that Baek-jun did not die with a slow death from loss of blood, noble, as he considers himself, the teacher decides to help him die quickly. Baek-jun is flattered by such courtesy and, in response, in the end reveals a little secret in Hyun. The fact is that the artifact that he gave him TRS, with the help of which he found Baek-jun and wanted to use to find the return trip, a one-time one. That is, it will not work to ask him a new route, and he literally ended up with his students. With rage, Hyun uses the technique of a sword, directing the flow of power to the Baek-jun to end him and make sure his death. Baek-jun jumps from a cliff in an attempt to evade the attacking technique of the sword. But unfortunately, he does not manage to dodge, and the attack pierces his already bloodied, weak body. Baek-jun falls deep down from the cliff from the mountain, which for Hyun means the successful completion of the task. Having made sure that Baek-jun was no longer alive, and his body, having fallen from such a height, could not stay whole, he decides to return to the clan's house with his students. But as Baek-jun said, the artifact, which gave him Tae-ras, was disposable. Hyun was trapped through his own fault, and the punishment for such a bloody and treacherous choice was not forced to wait. The crowd of monsters living in the maze fled to the screams, as well as on the human blood of Jun's human blood, stronger than ice wolves. It would seem that everyone in this situation lost. Baek-jun is dead, and Hyun and his students will die at the hands of monsters. But miraculously, Baek-jun managed to survive. Everything is due to the fact that he opened the portal, located on a cliff that saved his life. And all this was planned by Baek-jun, because at the depths of the cliff there was something very significant. Namely, the Book of the God of War, which gives the incredible power of the blood heir of the clan of the Holy Sword. Baek-jun manages to grab the book before he lost consciousness, thereby starting the process of awakening. The blood connection of Baek-jun was confirmed, after which the process of awakening the dormant blood of the God of War began. His body was seized with a bright flame, but it did not burn it, but on the contrary, restored and gave strength. Now Baek-jun is not a weak and frail boy, unable to even stand up for himself, but the strongest warrior of the clan of the Holy Sword. And all thanks to the book, which for sure was left by one of the descendants of Baek-jun, whose name he did not know. Anyone who sought to capture all the combat techniques of this world in one book, a certain book of martial arts. But in the declining years, he decided to leave this book to descendants, so that even after his death, his business continues to live. And there was one who would continue to record new martial arts that appear in the world in it. And also, a request to the one who found it. Use the knowledge given by the book for the good. Now this knowledge is owned by Baek-jun, the heir to the clan of the Holy Sword, who intends to use them for good deeds. In the system window there was a message that the Book of the God of the War was successfully used. All the characteristics of Baek-jun were significantly increased. In addition, he took possession of the heavenly combat physique, thanks to which he could develop faster. He not only became stronger and more resilient, but also received the unique abilities of the book and the combat body. His body instantly recovered without leaving a trace of wounds, as if nothing had happened to him. Now Baek-jun will have a long way to pump his body by accumulating intra-game experience. The path of Baek-jun in the game is one of the most difficult. He is known for his extreme difficulty in passing. What makes it passable is the acquisition of unique abilities and features. This is the reason why our hero went so far. And the first feature to study is Heavenly Martial Physique, which is ideal for martial arts, increasing all the characteristics of the body. This feature increases both the growth rate of characteristics and the speed of learning skills. In addition, periodically opens up new skills. It also strengthens the force, which makes a significant contribution to the further growth of Baek-jun. Unique ability was the Book of the God of War. She recorded new combat skills automatically and also endowed the opportunity to absorb accumulated glasses to study the techniques previously recorded in it. Unique abilities are special forces that only one person can possess. They cannot be conveyed by training or exchange, which makes them unique. Now, one of the unique abilities is owned by Baek-jun, and this will help him avenge betrayal and go through the game in order to survive. The book was not limited only to combat skills, whether it was real martial art or even fantasy equipment. If such a technique can be applicable in battle, it can be studied. Of course, with its help, it is impossible to learn magic or alchemy, but there are other ways for this. And the first thing, what Baek-jun did after he gained such a great power, this, of course, is the distribution of points received from the system for the book found. He was given 100 points for pumping, as well as the opportunity to accept a new task. Without thinking twice, Baek-jun opened the system with the distribution of glasses. After all, a competent distribution will significantly affect his future. But, to his great regret, so far only the techniques of ownership of the sword are available to him. In its current state, the battle is almost equal to suicide. However, there are not only skills in the sword technique, there are others that will also turn out to be useful. The first studied technique for BK Jun was the technique of movement, making the body easier. It also improves speed, dexterity, and reflexes. Now for Baek Jun, this is one of the best solutions, because this is definitely useful both when fleeing and in the battle. And since the Book of the God of War increased the skill of Baek Jun, with this technique he can now do some interesting things. It remains only to choose a task, the list of which is displayed by the system. The first quest, Catch Me, Baek Jun decides to temporarily postpone. Now he has a much more interesting task related to his ancestor, and it seems that for his sake he will have to become a bandit for one day. This task will open a difficult path similar to a maze. If Baek Jun can find a way out, the award will wait for him at the destination. In fact, this is a reward of the Tomb of the God of War, and the boy believes that this quest will easily be able to pass. At the same time, the team at Hyun to tear monsters embittered and eager for blood to shreds. It was not even possible to escape even the seemingly confident in Hyun. All that remains of them is only traces of the struggle and blood that a blizzard has overcome over time. Baek Jun, in turn, continued to fulfill the task and has already collected some necessary ingredients. To complete the task, he needed the root of the sun, the root of the fiery spirit, as well as a fiery ginseng. This was only the first stage, but for Baek Jun, it was not difficult to fulfill it. The next stage of the task was to open a chest in which rare ingredients were stored, namely, 1,000-year-old snow ginseng and a bag of the custodian of treasures. After that, there was a corresponding notification of the system about the successful completion of the task and the list of awards. 500 points and an unknown item, Black Demon. As soon as the quest was completed, the system notified Baek Jun that the Tomb of the God of War fulfilled its role and will be destroyed, so he needs to return to the surface. Baek Jun was glad of a similar place. The more difficulties, the higher the reward. Now new ways and opportunities have opened for him in this vast world. The Black Demon is a mantle that Baek Jun received as a quest reward. She increased defense power and restored seriously damaged parts of the body. She also helped to adapt to any environment and increase the survival of the media. Using the portal for the exit, Baek Jun leaves the place that endowed him with incredible power to continue his character and go the game. The portal moved it directly to the location of the Clan of the Holy Sword, next to the observation post at the main gate. Appearing suddenly, Baek Jun knocked on the window of the room, where one of the inhabitants was sitting. Initially, he took him for the monster, but then he saw Baek Jun in him. Baek Jun ordered him to bring the son of Mina to him, the servant of the Clan of the Holy Sword, to whom he trusted as his native. Returning to the clan's house, Baek Jun fell asleep for 5 days. Despite the fact that the Book of the God of War helped restore the wounds, the body still needed rest. This caused concern because there were no wounds or other signs indicating damage on it, so the doctor of the Clan of the Holy Sword, Chu Jun-won, said. The son of Ming did not fully understand what happened and what would happen next to Baek Jun, and whether he would wake up. Right during the discussion of what happened to Baek Jun, he wakes up and almost jumps out of bed, scaring the servant and doctor standing nearby. Baek Jun looked as if he had just fled from a flock of ice wolves, frightened, with an alarming look and heavy breathing. The son of Ming and Jun-won were glad to see that everything was in order with Baek Jun. At least he woke up. Baek Jun was surprised to see them, deciding that all this was a dream, or even a dream in a dream, and everything that happened was only a dream. Opening the window, he saw the territory of the clan. In front of the entrance, the students were preparing to go to the gates of the Rank B in order to fight the monsters. Baek Jun was extremely surprised, realizing that he was right now in the house of the Holy Sword clan. But he was also upset, because now he is not just a character of the game, but a young gamer who made a strange deal. He thought for a moment that all this was only a dream, but no. After what happened at Baek Jun, his head was slightly ill, and the healer hurried at the means for the young master. The son of Ming, in turn, suggested bringing food, but Baek Jun stopped him to ask what day and year now. He was a little disoriented. As a result, Baek Jun safely returned home, and at the same time fulfilled the quest, Catch Me, receiving 100 points of the system as a reward. Although he returned home as he wanted, the house was not safer than snow plains. After all, this place is an extension to the estate of the Clan of the Holy Sword, where many fight on fists for the championship, and the children of powerful clans in turn are fighting for power in their house, a certain eternal epicenter of conflicts. Taras is the eldest son of the family of the Holy Sword clan, one of the most powerful. He is one who, by all means, wants to get all power. And also there are other heirs. Yu Jan-yong, the eldest daughter, Yu Kan-ko, the third son, Yu Min, the fourth daughter, and the last, fifth, Baek Jun, the youngest son of the family of the Holy Sword clan. There used to be 3 more children, but they were killed by the will of Tae's wound. This can be called the usual struggle for power among brothers and sisters. It is logical to assume that Tae-ras will be a clear heir. He has strength, power, and authority. The rest of the heirs understand this perfectly. Realizing this, Khan wanted to unite with Tae's wound. while John Yong was almost desperate, and Yu Min did not show interest in the struggle for the throne. He killed 3 younger brothers in order to protect himself and fix his place, wanting to complete the dispute about the inheritance as soon as possible. In other words, he strives for absolute power and does not leave others a single chance. There is no question of the formation of a coalition between other heirs. As a result, Tes is a clear winner in the race for the inheritance, and he is the main antagonist on the path of Baek Jun. Today is already January 15th, 2035, and exactly 2 years later, Yumu Hak, Father Baek Jun, will transmit the leadership in the Taewon clan. But this will happen only if Baek Jun does not do anything, and Ta Ran will do everything to kill his younger brother. It is impossible to pull time. As soon as the older brother sees the post of the head of the clan, his power will become final. Ta Ran went to deal with the gates on Mount Suk and will return exactly 2 months later. During this time, Baek Jun should become as strong as possible. After all, only strong in this family can rule. In other words, if Baek Jun becomes stronger than his former himself, the clan recognizes him. And to great happiness for Baek Jun, there are many great teachers in the clan who are able to teach all the intricacies of this world. First of all, he went to the healer's room in order to learn more about medical herbs. His past experience suggested that such knowledge would definitely not be superfluous. At this time, the doctor was on the 2nd floor, studying new herbs for future drugs and other purposes. He was quite surprised when Mr. Baek Jun himself came to him with a very interesting request. Baek Jun apologized for entering without permission and asked Jun Vaughn just to observe how he works. Thus, he wanted to become a student of Jun 1. This would help him better master the grass and learn a lot. To become stronger, Baek Jun must be able to not only wave a sword, but also know other vital elements that will help him in the path of becoming the strongest warrior. Baek Jun replied that he was interested in the current state of his health, so knowledge of medicinal herbs will not be superfluous. Jun 1 is a doctor who worked on the clan during the reign of the previous chapter. He not only loves his business, but is also unusually gifted. In addition, he does not participate in the struggle for power in the clan. The only thing that excites him is the collection of herbs and the production of drugs. To great surprise, until today he had no students. Not that he had problems with the search for students, on the contrary, but he had his own reasons. He studied medical art all his life and would like to convey his knowledge to people from the clan, but the problem was that none of the clan wanted to study this matter. As a result, there was no student for Jun Vaughn until the young Mr. Baek Jun came. The main goal of Baek Jun was to get an elixir who would help him become many times stronger. In this, the skill of manufacturing oriental drugs Jun 1 will help him. Jun 1 was glad that he finally had a student from the clan who wanted to learn herbalism. Like it or not, the doctor was already quite old, and it took a lot of time to make new drugs, not to mention the discovery of something new. Baek Jun told the doctor that herbalism is exactly what interests him. He even independently studied this of the books. The doctor was extremely surprised. The young gentleman, the heir to the clan, who wants to learn more about herbs and sincerely interested in herbalism. Baek Jun immediately decided to demonstrate that his words are not just a 3. By smell, he determined what herbs the doctor used and why. It was the aroma of a combination of peaceful grass and a sleepy flower, a medicine that helps to reduce headache and restore mental balance. The doctor was extremely shocked by how Baek Jun was able to determine the composition using only the sense of smell. The young gentleman also mentioned that the books did not give all knowledge, so he independently extracted and used herbs, so he remembered their smell. Baek Jun noticed that he feels another strange aroma, similar to screaming herbs that are poisonous. Although they are poisonous, if they burn them and then remove the poison, they turn into herbs that help restore a lot of energy. Hearing this, the doctor of the clan Jun 1 shone as never before. Until today, he has not met anyone who would have been so dusty to study herbalism, besides himself. For the doctor, it was a great annoyance that the talent of the young master was not in martial arts, but in the salvation of lives. If he had not been the heir to the clan of the Holy Sword, he could become an outstanding doctor at the Jun Vaughn level, and possibly better. Baek Jun decided to ask if the doctor knows what really happened to him, but Jun 1 knew only that the master went for a walk alone and monsters attacked him. The doctor was not aware of the attempt by Hyun on a young boy arranged by his older brother. Baek Jun admitted that thanks to this incident, he more than ever felt the importance of drugs, especially their significance in dangerous situations. The joyful Jun 1, seeing a real talent in the field of herbalism, offers Baek Jun to study with him if he does not mind. The young gentleman makes a surprised face, saying that Jun 1 is rather busy, whether he would bother him. Jun 1 is ready to postpone all his affairs to teach young master to medicine arts. For both, this was an honor. For the doctor, the opportunity to teach, for a young master, to learn from him. But Jun 1 can't teach everything from the very beginning, so you need to find out how much Baek Jun already knows. For Baek Jun, a corresponding notification in the system appeared. Now he has become a student of pharmacist Jun 1. The next test for Baek Jun is to go through the doctor's test to learn more about his knowledge. In the game, The boy did this hundreds of times, but in the real world, it will be more difficult. Junfan can definitely be trusted. Since he is not interested in the struggle for power, the same can be said about the servant of the son of Min. Once upon a time, the son of Ming asked Baek Jun to cure his family. Since then, he considers himself to be paid debt to him. However, due to the lack of any talent for martial arts, he performs the duties of the servant. Baek Jun is sure that he can be trusted. Now the time has come to pass quests to improve your body and skills. The first task will run for at least 5 hours. This did not really delight Baek Jun, because for his bony body, it would be difficult to run even 10 minutes, not to mention 5 hours. The faithful servant was shocked by the news that Baek Jun was going to start training. He came to his senses just a couple of hours ago, and immediately wants to train. This was extremely surprised by the son of Min, but he understood why Baek Jun to train. Father Baek Jun called him weak and inept, those who cannot stand up for themselves, literally mixing him with mud. He even refused to believe that such as Baek Jun could be his son. Unlike brothers and sisters, he did not know anything and was extremely weak. The clan of the Holy Sword is like the kingdom of animals. Only the logic of power rules in it, and no one is freed from this. From early childhood, Baek Jun was very kind. He was not gifted in the field of martial arts, which the clan considered the most important aspect. And his character, good and flexible, most took for weakness and looked down on him. Even novice students mocked him. As soon as he appeared on the training field, the boy was thin and skinny, one skin and bones. But now Baek Jun does not care about it. He has a clearly set target that he intends to strive for. Now everything will be different. The times of the new Baek Jun have come, and the Tsingan technique will help him to pass the endurance task martial art that makes the body easier and improves speed, reflexes, and strength. True, there is one but. The body has not yet been adapted to such changes and is not ready to quickly change the rhythm of the previous life. But it is too late to give up. The young master can only step over himself and move forward, no matter what. This, in turn, will bear large fruits and will become another confident step forward on the way to the formation of the strongest warrior and a worthy heir to the Holy Sword clan. The persistence of Baek Jun paid off. He managed to fulfill the quest to get rid of the thin body, having received 50 points of the system as a reward, as well as an increase in strength. For his body, this was a real severe test, but unfortunately, nothing is just given nothing. Before the young gentleman had time to rest, as the ill-wishers had already come to him, whom he was forced to consider relatives. This was the third son of the family of the Holy Sword clan, Yu Kan-ke, who joined the older brother of Tai's wound and also hated the youngest for his weakness. Kan-ho came to ask what his younger brother was doing so. After all, Baek Jun did not leave the room before reading the books, for which he was called a bookwater. The exhausted Baek Jun pretended to be glad to see his older brother. A lot of time passed from their last meeting, although they are brothers. Kan-ho was wondering why Baek Jun suddenly decided to start training instead of sitting in his room around the clock. Baek Jun only smiled slightly, not taking seriously the word of his brother, who hinted that training for him was useless. The third son of the clan of the Holy Sword, Kan-ho, is also known as the main villain in the clan. He spends money to the right and left without a second thought, as well as random with women. A guy provoking the riots every time he goes beyond the limits of the house. Baek Jun admitted that the desire to train arose after a recent attack by monsters. Then he decided to become stronger. But Kan-ho did not care. He again called his attempts to train a waste of time. In addition, if Baek Jun needs help, he could turn to him. But of course, it was a joke. Having stepped closer, Kan-hut beats the back of Jun's knee in the nose, exhausted after training. At the same time, he pronounces that kindly will help, as he helped in the past. After this scene of the meeting of the two brothers, Kan showed his strength and hatred of the youngest in front of the rest of the clan. Baek Jun fell into a rage and promised to take revenge on Kan-ho for his humiliating appeal. The desire to answer the blow was incredible, but so far Baek Jun is too weak and he can only endure. He needs to become stronger. What quests will help him? Already immediately after a 5-hour run, he begins a 3-hour strength training. For this, as a reward, he will receive 50 points of the system and an increase in characteristics. Now the time has come to pump yourself a little with the help of the Book of the God of War. No wonder the young gentleman performed previous quests. Now he has a choice, what skill to choose. For example, a strick, which allows you to put mana into a fist or weapon to hit the enemy by force. Or the technique of triple mind is simultaneously sad and miserable, but it can help learn to use mana. And finally, the triple fist technique is a martial art that allows you to study 3 basic techniques: jabs, elbow blows, and uppercutter. Each of them costs 50 points of the system. The choice is really difficult. In the arsenal of Baek Jun, there are 600 system points right now. 500 of them he received in the Tomb of the War God, and 100 for today's training. But still, Baek Jun decided to save glasses in order to accumulate even more by tomorrow and study the skill more interesting. One of the skills of Yun Song-ha, an outstanding A-class hunter, was called the demonstration of attributes. Although this is the skill of rank A, it costs only 500 points. It absorbs a crazy mana. This is a technique that the Ha-ha used to fill the sword with its excess mana, making blows with a sword at times harder. But Baek-jun still has herbs obtained in the Tomb of the God of War, for example, a Millennium Snow Ginseng, which goes well with this technique. On the other hand, the techniques of Triple Fist and Triple Mind are also interesting and, perhaps, come in handy in the future. But still they are useless compared to the demonstration of attributes, unless the striking is not so bad. Even if Baek-jun will train before exhaustion, this is just a third-rate martial art, but the reason he studies him is very simple. Ahead of the event, which is fundamentally changed by the body, the mind, and the whole world of the Baek-jun. In the meantime, he diligently continues to train to get rid of his bony body. In parallel, he demonstrated his knowledge in medicines and herbs. June 1. The healer brought him grass, and Baek-jun had to tell about her everything he knew. This time it was evading grass. It contains paralyzing poison. If you eat it, you can suffocate. However, if it is washed and then dried, it will give a considerable amount of energy. June 1 was incredibly happy, watching a worthy student growing before his eyes. The opportunity to train the young master was like a gift from the universe. He looked at him as at the end of the tunnel, at the one who will continue the work of the injury and open many new drugs. After passing the medical test from June 1, for each guessed grass, he received 5 points of the system, thanks to which he bought the demonstration of attributes and continued to get rid of the bony body for 4 days. And after this time, he managed to open the development of oriental drugs for the manufacture of an elixir of force. When using this skill, the drug becomes 1.5 times stronger. The doctor congratulated him on the end of the medical course. Now he is a great pharmacist and more talented than the majority. Baek-jun also noticed an interesting feature of this world. No one except him sees the system window. June 1 did not even mention him, although it was open right in front of him. Nevertheless, now another thing is important. The young master needs to prepare an elixir of power, and for this, he will need the help of June 1. The doctor was very surprised at such a sentence, because Baek-jun is extremely talented. It is strange that he needed help. But June 1 was only glad and immediately agreed. And suddenly his surprise intensified even more. In front of him he saw the rarest ingredients, which you could not find in the afternoon with fire. It was 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, and with it several more similar grasses. Solar root, the root of the fiery spirit, and even a fiery ginseng is a real paradise for a pharmacist. June Vaughn had many questions. One of them concerned the attack of monsters. Did Baek-jun really go there for a reason? The young gentleman apologized that he had not told about this before, and did not deny that he went to such a dangerous place in order to get rare herbs. The doctor was treated with understanding, because he would have done the same way. And yet he was insanely interested in what medicine the young master wanted to prepare from such rare herbs. Baek-jun wanted to create a pill that will bring yang energy to such a peak that it will suppress the energy of the yin of 1,000-year-old snow ginseng. And for this he will need to eat 1,000-year-old snow ginseng. The doctor's surprise knew no bounds. He realized that the zealous workouts of Baek-jun were just so that he could absorb such a powerful plant. And he, as a dedicated pharmacist, was only for such experiments. The dark night, lit by the light and calm light of the moon. At this time, a truly outstanding event took place in the doctor's room. Thanks to the support of June 1, the effect of oriental drugs intensified even more. Together they managed to create the strongest pill of yang, prepared by the hands of an incredible pharmacist and containing powerful yang energy. Now the young master has everything to become stronger right now and declare himself, not as a wimp, but as a competitor in the race for the inheritance. But before that, he did not even know that this is how the herbs received as a reward from the Tomb of the God of War were used. June 1 will observe the situation in order to immediately seek help. Baek-jun confidently grabbed the pill and made the first bite with optimism. This will be another confident step of the young master forward, on the way to the formation of the head of the clan of the Holy Sword. And suddenly a bright flame appeared, similar to what he saw when he first used the Book of the God of War. Something truly strange began to happen with his body. His eyes became white, and a red aura appeared around. June 1 only observed that the situation would not deteriorate. The body of Baek-jun enveloped the flame. It seemed that it was about to burn, not even leaving the ash. Everything was burning inside. It was unbearably hot, but the young master had to hold on to become stronger. As soon as Yang's energy spread throughout his body, he immediately ate 1,000-year-old snow ginseng. The taste and sensations were not the most pleasant, but there are no light steps on the way to the strength. After that, the body began to cool at an incredible speed. Cold energy pulsed in every cage. Energy yin began to freeze the surface of the body of Baek-jun, a monstrous sensation resembling a cold forest of labyrinths. June 1 began to worry about the master. Is it safe? Whether everything will be in order? But I decided to wait. Meanwhile, yin energy continued to circulate. The only thing Baek Jun could do was try to calmly direct her. The doctor was even more worried and was ready to call for help. The life of a young master was more important for him than any research. But suddenly he noticed that this could be the cultivation technique used in the clan of the Holy Sword, although she was different from the known to him. It was scary to watch this, but at the same time, interesting and intriguing. Jun 1 has accumulated many questions. Baek Jun decides to use the technique of triple mind to better learn to control mana. His body was enveloped in cold. A blue aura appeared around, as if the Ice King appeared to the light. Over time, Jun 1 noticed that energy became calmer and began to circulate through the body of a young master. Baek Jun continued to control the energy inside so that cultivation was successful. This was a real miracle. He was able not only to accept 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, but also to use the cultivation technique. But inside the Baek Jun's body there was little joy. A similar process is incredibly difficult to control, but it was worth it. And after a while, cultivation ended successfully. Baek Jun became even stronger, taking the next step towards the formation of the heir to the clan of the Holy Sword. Now the young master should carefully study his new body, what it is capable of, how and where to apply it. Jun Fan was interested in how the young master managed to achieve this level. As he coached his cultivation technique, Baek Jun lied that he simply repeated someone else's performance. Finding a suitable and most importantly quiet place, the young gentleman decided to try out what he was capable of now. But before that, it would be nice to find out your characteristics, what the system will help him with. Its physical characteristics have grown many times compared to previous indicators. Due to the effect of the elixir, the growth rate of all characteristics, skills, as well as the speed of energy restoration, also increased sharply. Of the significant advantages for Baek Jun now, the fact that the rank of mana is now V. This significantly improves the possibility of using skills. Now he can use the skill of demonstration of attributes, which manifests itself in the form of an aura due to the merger of strength and mana. The Har heareth for the consivoloi of the Drastos the Drace. It has a special heart that allows you to produce a crazy mana. Baek Jun concentrates energy at one point, filling his hand by the power of mana. He struck the ground with force, experiencing a new skill and gained strength. Extremely powerful blow, as befits the skill of rank A. A funnel is formed from such a blow in the ground. The place around is shrouded in cold, and small ice crystals are circling in the air. However, the skill requires an unthinkable amount of mana, which becomes a serious problem for the back of the Jun. But otherwise, it should not have been expected. This skill was created specifically to control excess mana. The young master managed to avoid serious consequences thanks to a millennial snow ginseng, who helped him better control mana. The Ha's dream itself is now in the United States, and Baek Jun would be interested to meet her later. But now there is no time for this. It is time to prepare for the most important event. After all, from this day, the attitude of others towards Baek Jun will radically change. The son of Ming was surprised how early the young gentleman began to wake up and how early he needed to bring breakfast, because of which he had not sprinkled recently. But Baek Jun was more interested in what the clan was busy this morning. Now he is not the weak boy who was unable to answer rudeness. And just today, Sunday, the clan members will watch training. Baek Jun also received an invitation, but the humble servant rejected him. However, the young gentleman decided that today he should join his family. To participate in this is the duty of each member of the clan, without exception. The son of Ming reminds Baek Jun that he refused to take part in early childhood, not ever wanting to see something like this again. But today, everything has changed. Today, Baek Jun attended the training with the participation of the clan members for the first time in a long time, causing a surprised reaction from all those present. This training is the ancient tradition of the clan of the Holy Sword. New students are engaged in groups every morning. Combat-based combat instructors and family members are watching training, ordinary practice for the martial arts clan. Baek Jun used to consider this tradition useless, but the head of the clan was of a different opinion. For him, it was an important feature of the clan. Muhak is the current head of the Holy Sword clan and Father Baek Jun. The pressure here is really serious. All the eyes were fixed on the back of Jun because no one expected to see him here again. Next to Muhak were instructors who conducted training for new students. There were those who were delighted with Baek Jun. The older sister was worried about the monster's attack on his younger brother. Yu Jianyong is the eldest daughter of the Holy Sword clan and a participant in the struggle for the inheritance. Baek Jun was in a good mood and thanked Jianyong for anxiety. But there was one who did not want to see him anymore. Kan Ho reproached Baek Jun of weakness, claiming that he would disgrace their family. To be a member of the clan of the Holy Sword and to be on the verge of death from the attack of monsters sounds extremely humiliating. But Baek Jun needs to be patient a little more to prove his strength. Near Kan Ho was also the fourth daughter of the clan, Yu Min. She was not interested in either the conflicts of the brothers or the struggle for the inheritance. Kan-ho took advantage of the moment to mention that Baek-jun often began to visit the healing room. In his opinion, medicine is everything that suits the inept younger brother. Baek-jun could no longer endure such, so he decided to start his main plan for the day. Kan-ho was beside himself with rage and was ready to kill his brother immediately after training. But Baek-jun was no longer restrained, rudely asking his brother to shut up. This caused surprise among others. The instructors even slightly tensed, seeing this. Even usually the indifferent Yu did not stand aside. It seems that this aroused her interest. Silence reigned. Baek-jun slightly tensed. He expected a strange reaction, but not so. Kan-ho was like a volcano, ready to erupt anger. But Baek-jun continued to overshadow the situation, reproaching his brother in a dysfunctional lifestyle and inappropriate expenditure of funds. In addition, he advised Kan better care for himself, since he has time to run after the girls. These words brought Kan-ho to rage, and he was ready to start a fight right in front of everyone. But Baek-jun had other plans. His next goal was to get his father's recognition. To do this, he turned to him with a request to teach him martial arts. After all, no one except the head of the Saint Sword clan knows more about them. However, Muhak was dissatisfied with this request, and the very fact that Baek-jun here, in his opinion, this is not a place for someone who is not showing interest or talent. But the young gentleman proves the opposite. Now he has both interest and the desire to become stronger. However, the father does not understand this. After all, Baek-jun claimed that he did not want to study the techniques created for murder. Baek-jun does not deny his words, but now he has changed his mind. Once on the verge of death, he realized that he had to be able to defend himself. These words were a little interested in Muhak, but he wanted to know more about the motives of his son. The young gentleman claims that he would like to study with one of the 4 instructors. Kan-ho intervenes in their conversation, calling it ridiculous. After all, in his opinion, such a wimp does not have the right to study. The head of the clan also agrees with his words. He believes that Baek-jun has no talent, and his training will be a waste of time. Even if one of the combat instructors becomes a teacher, this will not change the essence. But Baek-jun does not give up. He claims that he has a talent, and he is ready to prove it. These words aroused interest in everyone who heard their dialogue. It was especially curious what exactly Baek-jun is talking about. And he makes his main move, realizing the risk, but deciding on him. He challenges Kan-ho. A week later, he will defeat him in sparring. Kan-ho was amazed, not with the courage, but with the stupidity of his younger brother. The difference in their strength, he believed, was colossal. He perceived this as an insult. To hear such from someone who never touched martial arts was ridiculous. But Baek-jun was confident in his decision. He was only interested in his father's answer. Muhak approves of the duel. He is really interested in seeing his son's attempt to win. However, this will be the last chance of Baek-jun. If he loses, then he will no longer belong to the clan of the Holy Sword. He considers such a price fair. After all, loud statements should not be empty. Baek-jun agrees and accepts the conditions of the duel. This news surprised everyone, even indifferent to the struggle between the brothers. Now the young master has exactly a week to prepare, hone skills, and become stronger. If he defeats Kan-ho, he will begin training with one of the 4 instructors. We can say that a reward for battle is a new technique for nothing. His current enemy will be a semolina, scarecrow. It absorbs a certain amount of user mana, can move and attack. The young master is full of optimism and is confident in victory over his brother. After it, he will be able to study even faster. Many members of the clan were amazed, watching how Baek-jun was training. In their eyes, he was still weak, but not for long. However, Baek-jun did not worry the opinion of others. He continued to train, bringing the studied techniques to perfection. In his arsenal, there was a scurvy technique, which increases speed, as well as the attacking technique of Strick. Now he needed to squeeze out the maximum of everything that he knows and knows how. It would not be superfluous to hone the skill of impact mana and also learn to control it better. After applying the cultivation technique, energy and power overwhelmed Baek-jun. In addition to this, the upcoming battle with Kan-ho gave even more motivation to become stronger in a short time. Although the majority mocked him, not taking seriously, there were those who saw in him obvious potential. 3 days have passed since the start of training. The young gentleman did not slow down, continuing to shred the scarecrow of mana, as if in front of him Kan-ho himself. The training was heavy and exhausting, but Baek-jun clearly understood his goal. In addition, it would be stupid to stop there. One of the clan teachers became interested in his training. Although there was nothing unusual in his blows and technique of scurvy, he struck the usual technique of triple fist. Even though the blows were very powerful, there was nothing out of them. But the teacher was more interested in how he was able to master the energy that allows the use of the scurvy technique all day, without slowing down the pace. No matter how much he trains, his posture did not sag, as if he had known everything about this technique since birth. Observation sleep A was interrupted by the senior teacher and Kun Mo, who passed by and was on the side of the older brother of Tae's wound, to want to translate to his side and sleep A. Taking advantage of the case, Kunmo asked for a dream if she had changed her opinion regarding the support of Tae's wound. Bakjuna came to the end. After a couple of days, he was sparring against Kanho. The training site was pretty broken, but without it. The scarecrow mana broke one after another, like glass. But Bakjun was pleased with the results of training. He understood that every day it became stronger, not only in words, but also in practice. And with endurance, he was significantly helped by a 1,000-year-old snow ginseng. Without it, he would have had to be tight. The boy also worried about possible differences with the game, but fortunately, for him, this world was completely similar to the game. While Bakjun was thinking about what to do next, a teacher sleep, stretching out a handkerchief so that he could wipe his sweat. The clan of the Holy Sword has its own class system, which looks as follows: the youngest students, followed by teachers, then senior teachers, above whom only the head and his blood relatives. Thus, senior and ordinary teachers support those heirs who are closer to them in spirit. It is natural that the more support the heir, the more advantages he has in competition. However, some teachers prefer to maintain neutrality, such as a Dream A. To enlist her support for Bakjun would be a serious strengthening. In addition, a dream, but could teach him new techniques and point out errors. The teacher shared with Bakjun that Kan Kyu has been training the senior teacher himself for a long time. Bakjun took these words as a hint that he had already been written off. Like, what's the point of fighting if he loses in any case? Although the dream was meant completely different, the young gentleman was sure that this was what she wanted to say. Be that as it may, he did not call Khan on sparring just like that. He had ideas on how to win. This was very interested in sleep. She became curious how Bakjun plans to win. After all, a simple fist technique will not help here. In her eyes, Bakjun saw a clear curiosity, although he did not fully understand what exactly attracted her. Sleep A is special. Most members of the Holy Sword clan are not interested in anything except the sword. And she is interested in other aspects of the battle. Its goal is to use everything to become stronger, including magic. This distinguishes it from the rest. But because of her teacher's position, she had to be careful. After all, the clan of the Holy Sword is famous for the fact that all its participants use only a sword in battle. Therefore, the fact that Bakjun applies exclusively the fist technique greatly surprised it. The clan of the Holy Sword is a place where only the art of a sword is studied. But Bakjun was of a different opinion, which was even more intrigued by a Dream A. He argued his battle style by the fact that the god of war in the past used not only a sword, but also the fist technique, spears, and even a bow with arrows. He applied all possible means of struggle. Therefore, according to Bakjun, he was limited only to a sword, a stupid rule, and he is not going to follow him. Teacher Song. A was surprised by the words of the young master. He, like her, sought to study everything that would help to become stronger. In addition, no one knew why the god of war left only the techniques of the sword, rejecting everything else. The god of war himself never appeared in the game personally. Records of him existed only in the book allegedly left by him. A dream was not against the views of Bakjun and readily agreed to help him in training. This was achieved by a young gentleman. Enlisted the support of the teacher, he could significantly improve his skills. Nevertheless, Bakjuna bothered something. He was an outcast in the clan, and if he begins to train Sleep A, it can be comprehended by the same fate. But this did not matter because, according to the teacher, she is also an outcast in the clan. Since both of them look at them, even if she becomes his mentor, nothing will change. Other teachers would find 1,000 excuses so as not to train him. But the dream was only glad to teach Bakjun. She was not worried about the opinion of other people. Besides, she was very talented. So Bakjun became a student of Song A. They had a similar vision of the battle, so there should be no problems with understanding. Kansong A is a hunter with potential to grow to the level of a magical swordsman, like a Dream Ha. She is perfectly controlled with mana, so the study of the circulation technique will not be a burden for her. However, Bakjun forgot how much the dream was different and how a person is a dream, and as a teacher, she became a completely different person when she taught and did not feel pity for students. A new test appeared in front of the young Mr. Bakjun. Song A. Song survived in extreme training. Sleep training and lasted all night, and only in the morning Bakjun could go home to restore strength. The teacher was satisfied with the result, and also surprised at how actually the young master is in power. In the clan, the main technique was the technique of reason, and to master it, it took some time. She was left by the god of war himself, and there was nothing better than her. However, the dream was taught Bakjun with a slightly changed shape. She introduced a little mana into his body to strengthen him. She was extremely surprised by the size of his energy reservoir, the people of Dantian. Such a volume was uncharacteristic for someone who had just begun to study the techniques of cultivating the mind. Moreover, during the transfer of mana, Sleep A felt his vital energy, as well as how balanced his physical condition was, as if this body was granted to him by heaven. The teacher was amazed at how quickly Bakjun succeeded in his skills in such a short time. During the manipulations with mana back, June realized how the teacher does it and decided to try to repeat, although he saw her application for the first time. To achieve full control over this cultivation technique, countless training hours and combat experience were required. Moreover, the young master always kept away from martial arts. His congenital characteristics were very different from the ability to execute the technician. But this did not prevent him from repeating the technique of manipulating mana exactly when he saw her only once. Sleep, and was one of the few who did not want to serve any of the heirs, unlike other teachers. It seemed to her that it was much more important to deepen her knowledge in martial arts than striving for power. However, what she saw in the young master shocked her. He exactly reproduced what he saw only once. To crank this, you need to be unusually gifted. Baek Jun possessed simply incomprehensible talent. Perhaps the best potential was hidden in him among all his brothers and sisters. If Baek Jun does not stop there, he will be able to reach unprecedented heights, and Sleep was ready to help him. After all, the young gentleman was interested in martial arts on a par with her, and although she was never going to support any of the heirs, in Baek Jun she found something special that could change her opinion. But Baek Jun had a long way. In the meantime, he should have honed existing skills and develop new ones. This was quite feasible for him thanks to the system with its quests and pumping skills for the points received. Thanks to the tasks, he managed to interest the Dream A. The first stage in the task was to train the skills of a fist instead of a sword. The second is to say that with a high probability the Dream of A, and importantly, to possess the greatest talent. So he managed to fulfill all the conditions, after which Sleep A taught it to two important skills. One of them was the technique of the mind soaring into heaven. It was developed by the god of war and consisted of accumulating mana to activate physique. The number of mana has increased thanks to the Dream A. But although it seemed simple, it was very difficult to satisfy the conditions of the task, Interest Assist A. Even if Baek Jun managed to fulfill all the conditions, he did not have a talent. The teacher would simply leave. But since he had an unimaginable talent that stands out against the background of the rest, to pass by this would be a mistake. Before sparring with Khan, there was only one day, behind, for 6 days of hellish training, and soon their result was to be visible. His endurance struck other participants in the clan. Some even thought that he would exhaust himself before sparring. Training under the guidance of Sun A were really amazing. She often pointed to the master to mistakes and did not allow her to rest once again. Clans were struck not only by Baek Jun, but also to how strict Teacher A was a Dream A. Such training seriously exhausted the body, but for Baek Jun it was necessary to achieve the goal. The final day of preparation ended, as well as extreme training A. Baek Jun was extremely exhausted. Not everyone would have stood a similar training method, but this was necessary to become stronger in such a short time. Baek Jun learned a lot during this time with a dream and was ready for tomorrow's sparring with Kan Ho. A dream, and also surprised that the young master went through the whole training without a single complaint about fatigue, despite its volume and intensity. But Baek Jun only replied that this was all thanks to her enthusiasm and asked to continue to train him, especially to teach him the technique of the mind soaring into heaven and scurvy technique. The teacher was struck by his words because, according to the young master, he still needs to learn much. Although she herself believed differently, after all, as the technique of reason showed, he is able to fulfill it on the first attempt, exactly as shown. Even though he claimed that he did not have talent, suddenly, a noise rose on the territory of the clan, and someone unknown knocked out the wall right in front of the place where Baek Jun trained. Local participants were shocked by what they saw and were alerted. And oddly enough, only the well-known Kan Ho could have learned this, who decided to arrange a fight the day before official sparring. He was beside himself with rage. Anger seemed to envelop him from head to toe. His mind was filled with anger to Baek Jun. Without any explanation, he began a mess right in front of the teacher and other participants in the clan. The teacher was surprised by the appearance of Kan Ho, but Baek Jun asked her not to intervene. Sleepin was surprised by the like, not fully realizing what was happening. As soon as she turned away for a moment, Kan Ho had already rushed at the back of Jun, who had no strength left after training. Kan Ho hit his younger brother with a strong blow to his face. He did not have time to evade. Then he grabbed Baek Jun by the clothes, ignoring everything around. Kan Ho believed that his younger brother mocks him, calling him to sparring. But Baek Jun pretended not to understand what he was talking about. Kan Ho was outraged that Baek Jun did not refuse sparring, thereby humiliating him to the others. Baek Jun did not understand why he had refused. After all, it was he who called the older brother to sparring. It was humiliating for Kan Ho to fight with his younger brother, who, in his opinion, could not defeat him. Nevertheless, Baek Jun decided to answer rudeness, squeezing his hand, which surprised Kan Ho. Baek Jun did not understand why the older brother was so nervous. If he is really stronger, he should not be afraid to lose. In addition, since the father approved their battle, they both could not refuse him. Baek Jun squeezed the hand of Kan-ho even harder, which began to arouse surprise among the clanists standing nearby and suggested them whether the battle would begin right now. From the words, Kan-ho became uneasy, because he really would have to fight with his younger brother. Suddenly, Kan-I decided to write off everything he said earlier on his stupidity. After all, it makes no sense to arrange a battle now if official sparring will begin tomorrow morning. Baek Jun was slightly surprised by such a change in his brother's mood, but this did not change the essence. Kan-ho only added that there were no rules prohibiting the opponent's life during sparring. The long-awaited sparring day has come between the two heirs of the Holy Sword clan, the outcome of which was to decide whether Baek Jun could continue to belong to the clan. John Yong and Yu Ming were already climbing the places of observers, looking forward to the duel. After all, Baek Jun himself abandoned the challenge. It was really surprising. A quiet and calm boy who did not want to study martial arts suddenly called one of the brothers to sparring. Kako came quite early and was completely ready for battle. The last meeting with Baek Jun only added oil into the fire. The senior teachers were also in place. They all supported Tae's wound, and therefore Kan-ho. This was especially interested in John Yong because she still participated in the struggle for the inheritance between the brothers. And since the rest of the old people had already chosen their favorite, she wanted to attract the attention of Ja Yong and persuade her to her side. At this time, the situation was heating up. Baek Jun was already approaching the sparring site. He was not scared, even despite what happened yesterday, and walked as confident as if he had already won. Only a dream was worried because, despite the fact that Baek Jun was enough, Kan-ko was famous for his cruelty during the fights. The older sister was also surprised to see that the teacher sang A. But Baek Jun did not worry at all. For him, today seemed quite ordinary. Nevertheless, he was worried about the expression on his face A, who worried about his sparring. Although she did not think that the young master would lose his older brother and was even sure of his victory, the teacher continued to worry. Baek Jun only noticed that everything would be in order. The son of Ming was also worried about him, but soon believed in the power of the master. The reason for the excitement was Sleep A was only that even if Baek Jun wins, he could get out of this fight mutilated. But Baek Jun did not bother this. He was sure that he became strong enough to defeat Kan-ho without much effort. Although the dream A and was not an official teacher of the young master, she worried about him as if she had taught him from childhood. It slightly embarrassed her. We can say that Baek Jun is her first student with such talent, and she would not want to see him at all. Their dialogue is interrupted by the arrival of the head of the clan, informing that the battle is about to begin and it is time to prepare. It is time for preparations. Baek Jun decides to tell the teacher something interesting. For example, that his older brother loved to wander in different places since childhood. She already heard something similar, so it did not particularly surprise her. After all, Kan-ho was not the most diligent son of the head of the clan. But Baek Jun adds that once Kan-ko met a monster who seriously injured his right hand, and only with difficulty he managed to heal. This was slightly surprised by the dream, and it seems she began to guess about the intentions of the young master. Her guesses were true. Baek Jun was going to use this as the main trump card and remind his older brother about long injury. Therefore, she should not worry so much. The system also issued Baek Jun the new quest. I became the shame of my family, for which he needed to defeat Kan-ho. As a reward, he will receive 300 points, as well as some knowledge from the Book of the God of War. The head of the clan was already in place and is ready to announce the start of sparring between two brothers. So the final moment came. Both participants were ready to start the battle. Baek Jun chose his fists as a weapon, wearing only gloves. Kaku preferred a sword, as befits a member of the clan of the Holy Sword. There were no loud conversations. Both participants stood opposite each other in complete combat readiness. Baek Jun kept calm and did not look frightened. Today, he intended to take revenge on his elder brother for everything he did with him. Kaku was like an acting volcano and was looking forward to sparring, so that right in front of everyone to kill his younger brother. And since all the participants are here and the fighters are ready, sparring officially begins. Immediately after this, Kan-ho, using the technique of a sword soaring into heaven, attacks Baek Jun. Now Baek Jun would come in handy fangs of 9 dragons to repel the attack, but he is not yet ready. Instead, he uses the fangs of the 5 dragons. He collects all his energy and strength into one blow to survive before the attack. Everyone was interested in whether he could evade a blow, because before he had never studied martial arts. Most likely, he can. After all, now in the body of Baek Jun was a boy who sat inside the game character and studied his entire path, applying maximum efforts. One of the trials for him was just a battle with Kan-ho. Previously, he did not understand what he needed to do to defeat him. Then it was a big problem for him, because no one but him played for this character. And it was at that moment that he came an idea that helped to find a way to defeat Kan-ho. The method, although vile, but effective. Since this is a game, there were funny features in it, for example, the combination of skills, which he used. Baek Jun was going to take advantage of the same to defeat her older brother. To do this, he needed to understand how to combine skills in the system window. Due to the fact that this world was identical to the game, it took a little time, and he managed to create his first combination. The first combination was the blow of the earth, a powerful blow to the ground, raising dust and throwing stones flying into the enemy. Kang Ho did not take this technique seriously, believing that it could not harm him, what he soon regretted. The stones turned out to be quite powerful, and not only got the enemy, but also pretty wounded him. The thing was that it was not just a blow of the earth, but the blow of the earth plus demonstration of attributes, due to which flying stones became even stronger and more dangerous. They were incredibly fast and sharp, like a blade of a knife sharpened by a high-class master. This use of technology greatly surprised Kang Ho. He could not even defend himself normally. The stones cut through each part of his body, completely ignoring the clothes. The older brother only continued to call it a dirty trick, without taking a worthy rebuff. Baek Jun continued to attack. The next reception was the strike, a powerful blow with a fist in the face of Kang Ho. The blow turned out to be so strong and unexpected that he easily tumbled his older brother from his feet. Kang Ho tried to counterattack, waved his sword, but it was too late. Baek Jun took a dominant position. He struck the old injured hand of the enemy. Around everyone was shocked by what they saw. Kang Ho himself was no less stunned. He felt the entire power of the blow. The pain was unbearable, and his screams seemed to be heard per kilometer. But the elder brother was not going to give up, and fury rushed at the back of Jun, waving his sword in different directions. Baek Jun easily evaded the weak attacks of the weakened enemy, using the Singun technique. He even found time to mock his older brother. After all, he threatened to beat him, but everything turned out the other way around. Kang Ho barely stood on his feet, while Baek Jun was not a single scratch. Even despite the damage received, Kang Ho continued to believe in victory, but alas, to no avail. Baek Jun, leaving the battle unharmed, continued to mock his brother. He asked Kang Ho whether he thought why his father allowed him to walk anywhere, despite behavior. The reason was in his talent. Kang Ho was really talented but used his gift to humiliate others. Baek Jun hints that in fact Kang Ho is not a talent, but just a spoiled boy who does not cost anything without the help of his father. In a rage, Kang Ho continues the battle, trying to at least somehow hurt the enemy. But Baek Jun does not stand aside. He is counterattacked with a fist technique, knocking the enemy to the point. The elder brother decided that he had been crazy, and attempts to block blows with his bare hands was a manifestation of arrogance. But Baek Jun thought differently and confidently blocked the opponent's attack with his bare hands. He not only successfully repelled the blow, but also managed to concentrate energy for the next attack. Kang Ho was struck by the stamina and strength of his younger brother. Until recently, he did not want to know about martial arts, but now he is easy to win. The final nail in the coffin of Kang Ho was the combination of demonstration of attributes plus striking. With a powerful blow, Baek Jun proved his strength according to the laws of the clan of the Holy Sword, where the weak devour the weak. This blow became the final of sparring between Baek Jun and Kang Ho. He proved to everyone that he was no longer the one who was before and worthy of recognition. However, due to dust clubs, it was difficult for the audience to determine who won, although everything was already clear. Nevertheless, the silhouette of the winner became visible through the cloud of dust. Baek Jun officially became. For Baek Jun, the victory in sparring had additional bonuses. He received 300 points of the system and also raised his knowledge in the Book of the God of War. And since he is now stronger, he has the right to possess power, mansion, finances, and everything that had previously belonged to Kang Ho. This was the reward to the winner of sparring. The result, of course, surprised many of those present. In just a week, Baek Jun managed to completely master the enhanced energy and attributes. Even if you consider that the dream but taught it the techniques of circulation and scurvy, he still mastered the most part himself. In addition, he studied completely independently techniques and enhanced energy. It was difficult to believe even senior teachers. Even the older sister John Young was shocked by what he saw, as well as the strength of his younger brother. After all, from childhood, his father made attempts to train a young master, but he did not succeed. The head of the clan was also surprised by the results of the fight. He was sure that Kang Ho would win. However, the victory of Baek Jun in this sparring made him smile. After all, now there is such a talent in their family. The young gentleman spent the whole mana and was completely exhausted. If the duel dragged on, the result would be completely different. Baek Jun was surprised how violently supported him, and sincerely worried that he could suffer greatly during the battle. It seemed that he could now ask her to become his official teacher, and she would immediately agree. If it was a game, he would have done so. But in this situation, he decided that he should not rush. Meanwhile, Muhak sent a servant to bring Baek Jun to him to discuss the details of victory, as well as the choice of a mentor. Baek Jun perfectly understood this, therefore. Having changed clothes, he immediately rushed into the room of the head of the clan. Kang Ho was beaten beyond recognition. Now the main doctor of the clan, Jun Won, will deal with its treatment. And since he was beaten by the youngest in the family, who trained only a week, his reputation in the clan came to an end. In the room of Mu-huk Baek-jun, senior teachers were waiting for, who was interested in which of them he would choose. It was also not opposed to talking personally, and his father, after all, after he saw, he had something to ask his younger son. He recognized Baek-jun to study martial arts and how he expressed it in sparring. Baek-jun expected a similar reaction because it was important for him to get a recognition of his father. The senior teachers were the pillars of the clan of the Holy Sword, and only those who possessed talent could study with them. Mu-huk asked Baek-jun whether he really believes that he has talent. Baek-jun's answer was not long in coming. He was sure that he had talent and was able to further develop it. The servants standing nearby were surprised at his words and began to worry if he would say something superfluous. Mu-huk noticed that there is definitely a warrior in him. However, all teachers will not be able to teach him at once. Therefore, he needs to independently choose one of the senior teachers who will continue his training. But if the senior teacher refuses, Baek-jun must accept this. According to the father, this is necessary that the clan pillars are not under the control of blood relatives. Baek-jun understood this and knew that some senior teachers have already supported certain heirs. Therefore, he needed someone who had not yet chosen his pet. Such a teacher was found. It was Ja-young, adhering to the neutrality in the issue of inheritance. She had the most experience and served Mu-huk for a long time. To develop the skills of fencing the clan, she made maximum efforts instead of participating in the struggle for power. Among her students were even combat instructors, such as a Dream A. Its influence was evaluated according to such criteria as raising talents, the development of fencing, and a general contribution to the life of the clan. The instructor with the greatest influence in the clan of the Holy Sword was precisely Ja-young. But as Mu-huk said, the teacher must also approve the choice of Baek-jun, or refuse. The rest of the teachers considered Baek-jun's attempt to become her student a failure because she did not take the students of the heirs. Even Tae-woon, the most gifted boy, she taught only the basics. Therefore, many of those present in the room considered this attempt by Baek-jun with stupidity. But the teacher Ja-young was a completely different opinion. Before making a verdict, she wanted to make sure of something. Such a turn of events slightly surprised those present, and for Baek-jun was extremely intriguing. Ja-young wanted to check whether he really has talent and not just arranges a show. And the result was struck by her. An extraordinary gift was really laid in the boy. She called him perfect. Other teachers were also delighted with her reaction. It was also interesting to them what she had in mind, calling the young master perfect. Ja-young said that the physique of Baek-jun is impeccably perfect, as if the body belonged to the heavenly god. It is time to make a verdict, but it seems that the answer was already obvious. Ja-young recalled that until this moment rejected the requests of other heirs to become their mentor so as not to interfere in the conflict. However, now she is ready to go against her principles and take the young Baek-jun as a student. Mu-huk was surprised by her decision, but did not dispute him, respecting the choice of a senior teacher. From this day, Ja-young is becoming a combat instructor Baek-jun. Everyone else can leave the room. But Baek-jun had another small but strange request. Father was not against listening to her. Nevertheless, the youngest son won sparring and had the right to vote. The request of Baek-jun was to allow him to use the treasury of the clan. After all, when his father put a cross on him, he was forbidden to use clan resources. Such a statement caused a slight surprise among those present. However, Tae-ras, John-young, Kan-ho, and Yu-ming calmly spent the clan's money on their needs, while Baek-jun, who was considered almost an inferior child, received money only for survival. In other words, if Mu-huk allows him to freely dispose of the clan finances, this will mean that he recognized him as a member of the family. Baek-jun, although he was pleased with life without a lot of money, understood that times were changing. Finances are needed to strengthen strength. The father was not against it and gave the order to transfer all the means of Kan-ho to him. This should become a lesson for his eldest son to draw conclusions. Some calculated such a solution too hard. But the head of the clan was confident in his decision, and none of the servants had the right to challenge him. Mu-huk had enough one glance for one of the servants to doubt her words. In it, Baek-jun recognized one of the servants of Kan-ho. Who else would fight for his rights? The father considered his decision true because Kan-ho began to live idly and neglect training. Such a punishment was not cruel. Only because he had at least some talent, his father turned a blind eye to his misconduct until recently. But Kan once relaxed and weakened. Today's duel was evidence of that. Baek-jun defeated him to fluff. On this note, the ceremony ended. After everyone left, Ja-young remained in Mu-huk's room to discuss the details of the training. The head of the clan was interested in what it was she who saw in his youngest son that she decided to take him as a student. Before that, she did not meet anyone with such talent, although she trained many boys and girls. Perhaps Baek-jun can even compare with the head of the clan. For Mu-huk, all this seemed strange. After all, in many years he did not see in his son a hint of talent. But so he thought only until today. Perhaps this was affected by the attack of monsters, after which Baek Jun was unconscious for several days. Ja Yong believes that such a probability exists. That case could somehow affect the current abilities of Baek Jun. Now the future of the youngest son has become truly intriguing for Muhuk. Can Baek Jun be compared with the head of the clan? At least he can become a new variable in the struggle of the heirs of the clan of the Holy Sword. Baek Jun had only 2 days to restore after sparring, after which he would begin training under the leadership of Ja Yong. For the victory, he also discovered the new ability of the book. Now he can spend points for new features. Before that, he could only study and pump his skills or adopt them from others. Now he can independently receive new features. Features are actually human talents, for example, immunity to poisons, or increasing the speed of mana recovery. There are many of their special forms, but they are more expensive. In addition to this, some events can only be activated when Baek Jun will gain certain features. He has about 1.5 months before the return of Tae's wound. During this time, he should acquire the best features as he can. After all, as soon as the older brother returns, Baek Jun will certainly become his goal, so he needs to become as strong as possible. His next goal was to show himself to society, and in order to understand how best to do this, he decided to first find out the opinion of the son of Min. The son of Mina was slightly surprised by the decision of the master. Baek Jun was interested in the upcoming auction, which would take place in a week in the Somnium Bar. Baek Jun should also understand that his actions are taking place in the game, so everything that he will try to undertake will cause a strong effect of a butterfly. For example, the enemy base or something else may change. That is, it will be much safer to entrust the son Min to complete the tasks than to risk it yourself. In addition, due to training by Ja Yong in financial management, time remained catastrophically little. Given the volume of Kanho savings, financial management has become even more difficult. He also received a black card, which is used only by 0.1% of people. The clan of the Holy Sword, although it lives away from civilization, on the very grief of Suk. Their wealth is not just a hearing, given how much they earned thanks to the stripping of the gate from monsters. And since the card itself was brought to him, from this day, she became his official teacher. This means that now a dream and will teach only him and anyone else. The official teacher is another rank in the hierarchy of the Holy Sword clan, but the duties are more reminiscent of the position of secretary. Nevertheless, many teachers were not against such a position because it was beneficial for them. Since Sleep A was one of the most talented teachers, it was perfect for this role. But more recently, a dream and did not want to teach anyone because she was not interested in someone else's talent. But everything has changed in an instant. For some time, Baek Jun has to focus on training as well as study 1, or better, 2 features. The first feature was the stimulator of the rank, which allows the body to withstand prolonged loads and restore strength faster. The price even for such a low rank was 300 points, significantly more than skills. But since the effect of 1,000-year-old snow ginseng ended, such a feature was vital for Baek Jun. Indeed, it was thanks to ginseng that he could train for days and nights, as if he did not know what fatigue was. Therefore, the stimulator was its first feature, replacing the effect of ginseng. The next he was to study the new skill. There are 2 ways to gain skills in the world of heroes. The first is training that allow you to open the skill and hone it. The second is with the help of a book of skills. It contains all the necessary information, and it gives the skill after reading. But the problem was that the books of skills are incredibly rare. Of course, it is not difficult to find low-ranking ones, but to get books of higher ranks, you will have to try. Therefore, for Baek Jun, the most optimal way to study skills is training. In addition, now he is taught by the senior teacher Ja Yong, which accelerates the process. And books are a matter of luck. Thanks to the Book of the God of War, he will be able to use this method at any other time. Now it is worth focusing on training. And training under the leadership of one of the best senior teachers, Ja Yong, will be incredibly useful. Before starting the training, Ja Yong was not opposed to treat Baek Jun tea to ask a couple of questions that interest her. But Baek Jun was not a lover of tea and was hostile to him for personal reasons. However, he was not against answering the teacher's questions. He was even glad of this. She was interested in what exactly he wanted to learn, once asked to become her student. She expected to hear something like, "I want to study the new technique of a sword," but Baek Jun was interested in hand-to-hand combat techniques. This is what he wanted to master, new fist techniques. For Ja Yong, this was a shock, because usually the heirs of the clan want to study exclusively the techniques of the sword. The sword is a symbol of the martial arts of the Holy Sword clan, as well as the fact that all students and blood relatives study. The technique of a sword soaring into heaven is strong in itself, but it becomes even more powerful with a high level of skill. Such a request was extremely surprised by the teacher, because Baek Jun turned out to be one of the few who wanted to study something besides the sword technique. Baek Jun perfectly understood this and confidently insisted on his goal. After all, the God of War used everything that could be useful in battle. not limited only to a sword. Of course, the young master did not claim to be going to completely abandon the ownership of the sword. Fist techniques will only be the beginning on the path of studying all types of martial arts, as the god of war did at one time. Jia Yang was pleasantly surprised to hear this, and hoped that the words of Baek Jun were not just an empty phrase. That is why he chose her, the senior teacher, because she studied martial arts previously used by the god of war. This interested Jia Yang even more. After such words, she really wondered what the young master is capable of. Therefore, the teacher agreed to teach him various techniques. She knew the fist technique, which she recognized in travel and search for scrolls. However, there was one problem. She could not find a complete recording of the technique, only her fragments. This meant that the fist technique she knew was imperfect. Therefore, she insisted that Baek Jun continue to study the techniques of the sword. But Baek Jun firmly decided to learn precisely the fist technique, even despite its incompleteness. And Jia Yang, seeing his determination, agreed to teach what she knew herself. On the training field, Jia Yang was full of talented students, which proved the level of her skill. Since the technique was imperfect, the teacher could show Baek Jun only 2 movements from it. The reason for this, as she said earlier, was that most of the knowledge was lost. Jia Yang began to concentrate mana in mannequins nearby to strengthen them and make them more durable. The students standing nearby were surprised, anticipating what the older teacher will show. After all, this happened quite rarely. Baek Jun was also intrigued and was looking forward to the demonstration. The system also gave him a new task, to repeat what the teacher will show. For successful execution, he will receive 200 points. The conditions were quite simple, so Baek Jun did not doubt his abilities. After all, he was incredibly talented. Filling the mannequins by mana, Jia Yang asked to watch her as attentively as possible. The next movement that she was going to demonstrate was called the Destroyer of Heaven. It is time to show the technique of fist in the style of Jia Yang, which she will teach Baek Jun. She concentrated all the energy and power around her. A strong wind rose, the flows of which rushed towards the mannequin. Then the air stained in bright green. The sight was really exciting. Further, Jia Yang collected all the energy at one point, her fist, which became like a fiery, as if ready to break out. Then, using the technique of scurvy, she quickly headed for the goal to deliver an accurate blow. Thanks to her skill, Jia Yang successfully used the technique and struck the mannequin. This was felt as an attack by a powerful and furious dragon, easily devouring its target. There was a powerful explosion at the scene. Nothing was left of the poor mannequin. The technique was really incredible, and watching the skill of the senior teacher, an exciting sight. Baek Jun was pleasantly surprised to see the true power of the teacher, and was impatiently wanted to repeat the technique. There really was nothing left of the mannequin, and in its place a huge destroyed trace was formed from the blow. The technique was destructive. Baek Jun was struck by such a force. Be that as it may, such a technique requires a significant amount of mana. A man with the usual volume of dantian would not even dare to try to repeat something similar. After all, there is a risk of dying. And this was only the first technique. Before allowing Baek Jun to repeat it, she decided to immediately demonstrate the second. But the second technique required significantly greater efforts and, most importantly, mana. Before that, she filled mannequins by mana, making them not only more persistent, but also capable of attacking the spheres of mana. Such spheres, of course, could not kill or very wound the young master, but they were able to complicate the task, and also leave a small trace of contact, so it would be better to repel attacks. Baek Jun was surprised by the swiftness of the attack and did not have time to react to repulse the flying sphere. He was also struck by the fact that the sphere struck him with an accurate shot. He was especially horrified by the fact that he did not remember that something similar would happen in the game. But there was no time for thought. The teacher had already begun to demonstrate the next technique and asked to watch carefully. The mannequins began the attack, releasing point shots of the spheres of mana towards Jia Yang. This time, several attacked several at once. Jia Yang took a protective rack, and Baek Jun, standing behind her, only closely followed what was happening. Around Jia Yang, a bright green aura began to appear, enveloping it from head to toe. Soon she concentrated all the energy and strength into a fist, preparing to use it to reflect spheres. It seemed that she would create a protective shield and then go into a counterattack. But the teacher's technique was much more surprising. With a wave of her hand, she directed the spheres of mana back, strengthening them with her energy, and struck each mannequin. The students who accidentally witnessed this were in shock. They could not imagine that their teacher owns martial arts of this level. None of them even hid that he would not dare to repeat this, because this requires tremendous efforts. Jia Yang called this reverse blow technique, a counterattack capable of returning the enemy attack back. Although it did not seem more powerful than the previous one, it was much more difficult to fulfill it. Therefore, only those who owns a high level could use such a technique. For Baek Jun, it was extremely useful because it can be used in different situations. And even if Jia Yang did not have the opportunity to use this skill in a real battle, she was sure that he would come in handy against other magicians. Now Baek Jun was ready to test the techniques just shown by the teacher. The reaction of Ja Yong spoke for herself. She was extremely surprised by his determination to repeat the equipment right now. Techniques requiring long-term training, the young master was ready to repeat immediately. The rest of the students also waited with interest what, in the end, Baek Jun will demonstrate. The senior teacher did not interfere with the young master in his desire to repeat the blow and began to fill the mannequins by mana again. Nevertheless, she was interested in whether he wants to start with the second, more complex technology. Baek Jun, of course, was determined and confident in his abilities. Ja Yong was shocked. The boy wants to repeat the technique, seeing it only once, and is even sure that he can. The students standing nearby did not see that Baek Jun showed in a battle with Kan Ho, so, although they were surprised, they still considered him a weakling. If he fails now, there will only be more ridicule. But Baek Jun was all the same. He was completely ready and confident in himself to repeat the reverse blow. To master the new skill, you need to either train for a long time or use the skills book. In addition, it is advisable to learn the skill on your own or under the guidance of an instructor. Regardless of the chosen path, hard workouts are a prerequisite in order to properly master the skill. But Baek Jun was not like everyone else. He did not master the new one in months, but for days. Now he was to prove that he was really gifted. Pupils and Ja Yong will witness this moment. To help the young master to achieve high skill was to be the book of the God of War he had previously found. Using her huge potential, he intended to repeat everything that his teacher taught. A bright flame flashed around him, capable of lighting not only a fire, but the whole forest. The senior teacher Ja Yong was stunned by how Baek Jun was able to absorb the attack of the spheres using the reverse blow. And then, just as she showed, he sent her back to the attackers. A strong and swift wave of his hand, he launched a fireball right into the mannequins. His attack resembled a furious blow of a fiery dragon, which could easily destroy the enemy. At the sight of the blow, there was a powerful explosion, from which everyone around was shocked. From the mannequins, there were only charred limbs, soon turned into ashes. Pupils who had previously doubted Baek Jun were forced to change their opinion. Ja Yong was shocked by what he saw, as if a new genius was born before her eyes. After all, even she, the master of the upper class, needed a lot of time to master such a technique. While Baek Jun not only easily repeated the blow to the first time, but also improved it. Ja Yong called the young master truly amazing. He not only repeated the reverse blow, but also applied the Heavenly Destroyer due to the absorbed mana. Baek Jun successfully completed the task from the system and received a reward, 200 points. He had less mana than that of the teacher, but he found a way to use external sources for his attack. It really was an impressive way to cope with the situation and demonstrate your skills. But this was still not enough to achieve the level of Ja Yong. Jinging, Baek Jun noticed that his technique, although loud, but not as effective as Ja Yong. For the teacher, this was a real miracle. She first saw that someone repeated such a complex equipment the first time. Baek Jun turned out to be a real genius with a rare talent. The students were also shocked by what they saw. Some even had the hope that they will also be able to repeat the technique of the master. Ja Yong at the same time rejoiced that she had met such a talented young man, and she was sad. She was not sure what else could teach him. She doubted that she would be able to be a worthy teacher for him. These words were shocked by Baek Jun. Meanwhile, the system prepared for him a hidden task that appears depending on how much he impresses Ja Yong. Along with this, the reward will also change. It will become more valuable. If Baek Jun continues to study with Ja Yong, he will not only come close to the title of the God of War, but also gets a new skill, Steps of a Ghostly Shadow. This skill is extremely useful. It allows you to become invisible. It can be purchased, but getting it free, much more profitable. However, this task also had its difficulties. In order to fulfill it, you need to continue to train with Ja Yong, and her training will now become even more severe, because she teaches not just a student, but a genius. The next skill to whom she wants to teach a young master is Steps of a Ghostly Shadow, and it is extremely difficult for them to master. Already a week of training by Baek Jun under the leadership of Ja Yong. As expected, he trampled like a horse. The training was incredibly heavy and exhausting. It seemed that he could die on one of them. There was almost no strength, but the young master held to the last, and in a sense, his suffering paid off. The teacher recognized his efforts and noted that in a week, he definitely became stronger. Many people need months or even years to achieve what he has achieved in a week. But for Baek Jun, this was still not enough. He did not come close to the skill of Ja Yong. And suddenly he heard a familiar voice, saying that he was in a hurry to reach the level of a senior teacher. It was June 1, and nearby was a Dream A. The doctor considered his desire somewhat arrogant. Ja Yong was also surprised when he saw the doctor in sleep, whom she had not seen for a long time. June 1 was also pleasantly surprised to meet the senior teacher. He also brought a medicine that helps to quickly restore strength for Baek Jun. Ja Yong was also interested in what led her student A. Baek Jun noticed that recently was a dream and is his official mentor. This surprised her a little, because a dream and said that having become a teacher, she would continue to adhere to a neutrality regarding the training of heirs. But it seems everything has changed after a meeting with the young Mr. Baek-jun. A dream and does not deny his words, but asks not to mock her. Ja-young apologizes, not wanting to mock her. She just wanted to make fun of. Sleep A adds that she changed her opinion hastily, so it was rather rude from the teacher. Ja-young understands this and expresses admiration for Sleep A because she always took care of her more than other students. The dialogue between them was also interested in Baek-jun and Jun Vaughn standing nearby. Ja-young adds that a dream and can adequately teach others. She also says that a little more than a month was left before the older brother of Tae's return. She was interested in whether Baek-jun would take part in the struggle for the inheritance. But for Baek-jun, everything was decided. After such a loud statement about himself, it would be foolish to refuse the struggle. Therefore, he intends to become a worthy heir. Ja-young understands that he was worried in vain, because the young master is no longer the same as he was before. The senior teacher recalls what happened to his brother and sister, Yoo Jung-min and Yoo Lan, who challenged Tae-woon in the struggle for inheritance. And he asks Baek-jun to be more attentive and beware of other heirs in order to avoid their fate. After all, they are ready to risk their lives to become the head of the clan. Baek-jun thanks Ja-young for mentoring, although he himself knew everything that she said. Training with Ja-young came to an end. Baek-jun learned new skills and made a good impression on the teacher. Now the young master has to decide where to move on and how to become stronger as soon as possible. But these thoughts interfere with the memories of Yoo Jung-min and Yoo Lan, who died due to supposedly an accident, although everyone understood that it was not an accident, but a focused murder. Tae-ras ruthlessly killed both of them after they openly announced their intentions to fight for the inheritance. He also tried to kill Baek-jun, but he managed to survive and become stronger. After the older brother's return, there is no doubt that he will become his main goal. On the way, he meets the son of Mina, who has changed a little from their last meeting. Seeing him like that, Baek-jun and a dream, but were stunned and did not immediately recognize him. At the same time, the young master was scared when he saw the son of Mina and his new body, but did not immediately recognize him and took him for the offender, who illegally invaded the territory of the clan and was already ready to deal with him. But Baek-jun stops her, proving that the same son Ming was standing in front of her, and asks her to look more carefully. But a dream and not believes him, because it doesn't matter how she looks at him. In front of her is more like a pig. Similar words are upset by the son of Min because he was glad to see the dream A. And only at this moment a dream and understands that in front of her is really the same son Ming. Sleep and brings his apologies to the son Min for not immediately recognizing him and called pig. He brought pasta as a hotel, a French confectionery to treat Baek-jun and Song A. Sleepin was struck by the deep taste of pasta, and it seems now understands how the son of Ming has gained such a great weight in just a week. He regarded these words as rudeness and considered that it was much more strange that Sleep and had never tried pasta before. It is justified by the fact that there is nothing strange in this, because it grew up in the walls of the clan of the Holy Sword. This is really so, because the dream was an orphan, which was sheltered by the clan, and it grew exclusively on its territory. But the purpose of the journey of the submissive servant was not only for the sake of sweets, but also in order to find out about the main product at the auction in the Sammunium bar. They were a corpse of some beast. The son of Min also took out 2 invitations to the auction in case Baek-jun wants to go with someone else. Baek-jun was grateful to the son of Min for the work done and deeply appreciates everything that he does for him. The next day, it is today in the city of Seoul, in the Somnium bar, that the famous auction will be held among those who are ready to pay a lot of money for an exotic souvenir. In Seoul, there was also a branch belonging to the clan of the Holy Sword. They were led by Jun-woo, the confidant of the clan. As soon as Baek-jun stepped into Seoul, Jun-woo received an instruction to follow him, but such measures were necessary for the security of the master. Baek-jun at that time was heading to the Somnium bar along with Song A, which first left the territory of the clan. A dream was on a platoon because everything here was anew to her. Passers-by, as it seemed to her, looked suspiciously at her because of her outfit. But Baek-jun assures her that no one cares about her, and more suspicious how she reacts to people. The young gentleman is interested in Sleep A, whether the senior teacher Ja-young was earlier in Seoul. Sleep-in replies that yes, but for no reason she does not go here. The last time I came here, it was when I became an instructor to register with the Association of Hunters. They just passed next to the building of the Association of Hunters, founded many years ago. Similar organizations serve to control hunters as well as fix their achievements. It all started several hundred years ago when the gates began to appear in the world and monsters climbed out of them. To resist the monsters, some people, now better known as hunters, gathered in groups and fought against monsters together. The groups that have been preserved to this day have grown in the guild, fortresses, or clans, such as the Clan of the Holy Sword. But such organizations were not just associations of hunters. Their main goal was to profit. In the current realities, various secret organizations have a much greater influence than the government. It is worth worrying about this to someone else, but not Baek Jun at the moment. But to some extent, it continued to bother Baek Jun. In any case, now he needs to focus on a more important event, a passing auction. The auction took place on one of the floors of the building, and having gone to the place where he was supposed to be held, Baek Jun was a little surprised by the number of people. In addition, this place was not like some kind of dark lane where expensive goods were illegally transferred. Around everything was decent. Baek Jun and Sleep In came just in time. The auction is about to begin. But since Sleep A was in such a place for the first time, everything was extremely surprising for her. She had not seen such a bright place with such a large amount of food anywhere. In addition to a large amount of food, there were many hunters from all over Korea. A Dream was surprised that so many hunters came here for the auction. Everything was anew for her. She also did not fully understand what the auction implies by and what value he has for the rest of the hunters. The young master replies that soon she herself will see everything. So the beginning of the auction arrived. A presenter appeared in the hall, who will conduct today's auction in the Somnium Bar. The host intrigues the guests, telling that rare objects from different worlds will be exhibited at the auction, and today's objects can be obtained exclusively from rare monsters from these worlds. The guests are in anticipation. What will be put up for auction today? Even a dream of A became interesting. And the first rare item was the item object received from the Dark Region. It was a famous book of skills for magicians, an incredibly rare object, and even such a rank. The magical book of skills would not be superfluous for the Baek of Jun. Her price tag started from 100 million. And immediately, someone from the hall offered a price in the form of 120 million won. A Dream was delighted with what she saw, because she was also fond of magic, and then she managed to see a book of skills for magicians. The young master was also interested in what kind of rank the book was, perhaps the rank A, or even higher. The book would become an excellent strengthening for his skills, especially considering how quickly he needs to become stronger. He wanted to get it even more. But so far he was only waiting for someone to voice a truly huge amount, so as not to attract excess attention. The price tag was constantly changing. At first it rose to 200 million, then to 220 million, and soon the one who was ready to give for it 240 million won appeared. But then one of the guests at the number is 18 voices of 1 billion out of 1 billion, interrupting all the bets and taking the book to himself. Baek Jun was interested in who was ready to give a whole billion won for a book of skills. But this was not the only subject at the auction. The second was much more interesting than the previous one. So the main subject of today's auction arrived directly from the mountain of Suk, where the rarest monsters live. And the most rare creature right here is the body of the snow tiger. One of his features was that he had a huge amount of mana, preserving it even after death. A Dream immediately noticed this and was extremely surprised to see the snow tiger for the first time. The body of the snow tiger was processed by real masters. They retained his heart inside, which is the source of a huge amount of mana. Many of the guests wanted to get such a luxury because it was not only a rare and valuable, but also a useful object. Those present could not wait for the presenter to voice the starting rate of the lot with the heart of the snow tiger. The initial bet on the snow tiger was an amount of 1 billion won, whether someone can offer more. Of course, there were a lot of people who wanted to. At first, the bet rose to 1.5 billion, then stepped over 2 billion won. Baek Jun also intended to join the struggle for such a valuable and useful object, the heart of the snow tiger. It would be a good idea to get his heart. This would significantly accelerate his attempts to control mana. The rate on the lot with the heart of the snow tiger crossed the mark of 2.5 billion won. Perhaps she would have become final if not for Baek Jun, who was ready to buy this lot for 6 billion won. It became sharply quiet in the hall. No one could have thought that someone would offer such a huge amount. With even greater surprise, it became for Sleep, because only recently the young master got the opportunity to use the finances of the family, and now he spends them. But Baek Jun perfectly understood his position and was not against spending such a huge amount of money. A Dream and tried to stop him, because if his father finds out that the young master spent so much money, he could be furious. But Baek Jun did not worry, because the money was at his disposal, and the heart of the snow tiger would allow him to become stronger. In addition, he said that for the clan this money is nothing, so Muhaku doesn't care. For the clan, this money was a trifle, and it seemed that no one was ready to give more than 6 billion for this lot. People were more interested in who was ready to pay such a large amount. But then screams come from the hall. There were more than 6 billion won. One of the participants offered the amount of as many as 6.5 billion won. Baek Jun was not surprised by such an influx of those who wanted, because the heart of a snowy tiger is an extremely rare object. A Dream and assures Baek Jun that spending so much money immediately after he got the right to use the money of the family is not the best idea. But shortly after, Baek Jun calls the price tag on a lot in the form of as many as 10 billion out, from which the Dream and is terrifying. The price rose sharply from 6.5 to 10 billion out. And yet, whether someone is ready to give more than 10 billion for such a valuable item. Baek Jun interested the winner of the previous lot, who wanted to pick up himself the second too. He reminded him of a spoiled child. He was surprised because no one had raised the price to the lot so sharply before. But still, the struggle for the heart of the snowy tiger continued, and the participant under the number 18 raised the rate of up to 10,200 million out. But the young gentleman does not give up, raising his bet to as many as 15 billion. Sleep and was simply shocked by such a solution, worried about the consequences. The participant under the number 18 was also stunned, but still raised a bet to 15,100 million won. But Baek Jun interrupts him, raising his bet to the impossible 20 billion out. The reaction of Sleep A described the feeling of everyone who was in the hall. The last participant rents his participation, not wanting to give such a lot of money. He simply did not fit in his head how rich you need to be so that it is so easy to spend 20 billion out. There were no people who wanted to kill the bet, and Baek Jun was glad of this, and did not worry at all due to the money spent. The presenter congratulated the winners on their subjects and announced the end of the auction. Fortunately, the snow tiger did not have to transfer the whole carcass. With the help of magic, it was placed in a small bag. On the way, Baek Jun asks Sleep and whether she knows about the organization Lagging Hunters. The teacher is surprised and answers that he does not know, because he hears about it for the first time. Baek Jun explains that everyone knows about the Magic Tower, a house for magicians. It is the strongest magical organization in the world, along with the clan of the Holy Sword. To be recognized by them, you need to make it pretty. Rumor has it that even in training, they are not inferior to the clan of the Holy Sword. Therefore, there are many people who are left behind. They created the organization Backward Hunters, or which are also called Stogglers. And since most of them came from the Magic Tower, they began to be called the Organization of Mercenaries. But Baek Jun does not agree with this, believing that such an organization will be better called criminal. After all, they are ready to take any measures to get all the objects related to magic into their own hands. Some people from this organization were at the auction and were extremely unhappy that they missed the lot with the heart of the snow tiger. They did not even understand who the dreams are, A and Baek Jun, believing that they were simply from a rich family. All they wanted was to take a bag with the body of the snow tiger and then put the silence spell on them so that they could not tell anything. But such words made a dream and lose their temper, and she was ready to enter the battle with them. The so-called leader of this small group of magicians was the same participant at the number 18, who also did not know Baek Jun and Song A. And without fear of the consequences, they decided to select a valuable object by force. Each of the magicians possessed its own magical power, and all of them simultaneously attacked Baek Jun and Song A. But the moment came to show the young master that he is not just a boy from a rich family, but a real warrior. Baek Jun uses the reverse blow, which was taught by the teacher Ja Yong. He managed to recapture all the attacks of opponents, concentrating them in his strength. Already now, Baek Jun could use the second equipment that Ja Yong trained him, but he continued to keep his defense. The offenders were surprised by such a turn. They could not even imagine that he could easily absorb all their attacks. This praises one of the magicians, and he decides to attack the Baek Jun with the strongest spell. It seemed that this attack could definitely hit Baek Jun, but it wasn't there. The young warrior without problems manages to absorb this seemingly powerful attack. Then he disappears from the field of view of the magicians, using the steps of the ghostly shadow, and appears right in front of the enemy's nose. Having concentrated all the energy received from the absorption of opponents, he uses the fist technique and clearly straightens out with one of the magicians. He literally proves a powerful and unexpected blow that he is not an ordinary rich child. The next attack, he freezes the limbs of the remaining magicians, which is extremely surprising. It seemed that it was all over for them, and their attempt to select the body of the snow tiger ended in the deplorable. For their leader in the name of Javan, it was a real shock, because he could not even imagine that he came across such a strong young man. Attempts to somehow resist Baek Jun were ruined, so Javan decides to abandon his comrades. It would simply be wrong to escape, so he decides to tell his comrades that he would run to the base in order to call the help. They did not understand why he would run straight home, because he could call help right now. But it was too late, and he simply ran away, leaving his comrades to the mercy of fate. It would be a mistake to let him go for a young master, because that guy took a lot with a magic book of skills, which means that Baek Jun may try to take her away. He asked for a Dream A, who was looking forward to this opportunity to deal with the remaining magicians. She was extremely glad when she had the opportunity to kill the remaining offenders while the young master runs after the book. At the same time, she was haunted by how strong Baek Jun was. After all, having studied the skill for the first time, he already used it masterfully. For a dream, and he became a real genius who possessed not only talent but also knowledge about this world, and she, as a teacher, could not lag behind. The remaining magicians, although their legs were frozen, this did not prevent them from continuing to attack the enemy. But such attacks are nothing in comparison with training in the clan of the Holy Sword, as well as the skill of teacher Song A. And at the last moment, hesitation comes to them that in fact their opponents are not spoiled children, but participants in the Holy Sword clan. But it was too late to change something or apologize. The dream was just beside me with rage. A dream and looked like death with a sword, in the end, that there are people in the world that it is better not to contact. For example, the clan of the Holy Sword. Meanwhile, the leader of the group of offenders running in fear loses the book without noticing it. He tried to hide as soon as possible and did not even notice how Baek Jun picked up the book. For Baek Jun, not only the book was the discovery, now he knows where the base of the organization backing hunters is located. It was quite difficult to find out because they constantly changed their whereabouts so that it was harder to find. However, Baek Juna, but Junwoo will be dealt with, the managing branch of the Holy Sword clan. He and several more participants in the clan were all the time next to Baek Jun, so they appeared immediately, as the young master called them. Baek Jun was interested in whether there is any of the peaceful citizens in this building, besides that guy. Junwoo possessed a feature to feel objects nearby, and even behind the walls. He did not find the presence of civilians, only criminals were in the building. Hearing this, Baek Jun gives the order to kill everyone who is in this building, including their leader. Junwoo and the rest of the clan immediately began to comply with the order of the young master. However, for Baek Jun, this was slightly strange, because Junwoo appeared immediately, as if teleporting him. Of course, he understood that the clan would ask one of the participants to secretly look after him. This was the advantage of the game for Baek Jun, although he is the most difficult character. Absolute power. This is what was one of the main trump cards of the clan of the Holy Sword, and also distinguished its participants in the background of the rest. The life of a young gentleman really got better. He can also be congratulated on another successful completion of the quest. He received 200 points of the system as a reward for the extermination of criminals. Meanwhile, Junwoo and the rest of the participants successfully cleaned the base of the Stogglers, and also caught Javan, who organized an attack on Baek Jun and Song A. Although he did not even know who Baek Jun and Sleep A really are, and what they are. Junwoo was slightly surprised at Javan's words. It seems that he really did not know about the Lord and the reasons for the attack on their base. At that moment, Baek Jun approaches them, introducing himself as a member of the clan of the Holy Sword. Javan was surprised to hear this. To meet someone from such a clan here, it seemed impossible to him. He considered it just a joke to intimidate him, and laughed at Baek Jun and Junwoo. After all, the clan of the Holy Sword is located at the top of the Mount Sorak. Why would its participants be in Seoul? Junwoo could not stand this, and a powerful blow to the knee hit Javan in his face. The blow was so strong that the leader of the Stoggler knocked out a tooth, and blood poured out of the nose, as if from a fountain. Junwoo warned him that it was better to respect the young master, otherwise he would not get off with a simple fracture of bones. The stripping of the territory of the base of lagging hunters can really be considered successful, which Baek Jun is undoubtedly glad. He orders Junwoo to knit Javan and go with him to the third level of the basement. Junwoo was surprised because, according to him, he and other participants have already examined and cleaned everything. However, the descent into the basement was hiding in the library, and Junwoo thought it was just a reader zone. Who would have thought that in such an inconspicuous place, something more than just books would be stored? The basement was literally scored by magical objects. Books made up only a small part of the contents. Junwoo apologizes to the young master for not finding this place before. Baek Jun replies that everything is in order because finding this place was extremely problematic. But Junwoo did not understand how Baek Jun himself found out about him. Did he really have a spy among the Stoggler? Meanwhile, Baek Jun finds what he came here, the magical circle of training of the rank A. This artifact was used by a magic clan to train Mana and strengthen her focus. It was ancient and rather complicated. The effect of him was relatively weak for his rank, but at the same time it made it accessible to many. In addition, the so-called library was full of magical objects. Baek Jun instructs to collect everything here and transport everything to the clan of the Holy Sword, including Javan. Junwoo was surprised at such a decision. He thought that in this way the young master wants to strengthen the relationship between the clan and the magic tower. After all, Javan is one of the Stogglers who are looking for magicians from the tower. Perhaps he owns the information valuable to them. Junwoo was delighted with Baek Jun. He was not at all as he was described by rumors, for sure. That's why the clan ordered him to follow him during a trip to Seoul. This meant that Muhak recognizes the potential of Baek Jun as a worthy heir. Baek Jun returned home and took up the analysis of the books that he managed to get. To help, he also called a Dream A. She was surprised when she found out why he specifically called her. Seeing many books in Baek Jun's room, she wondered what was the kind of it. But Baek Jun assures her that he had already read all the books, and there is nothing particularly important in them. The magical book, which he had given specifically for Song A, turned out to be more interesting. The teacher was a little shocked when she saw her. It was a rather rare and valuable item. Baek Jun was ready to give this book a dream because for some reason, only a woman could use it. The young gentleman claims that this book is useless to him so he can easily give it. A dream was incredibly surprised by such a gift, but did not want to accept it too much, considering myself unworthy. However, Baek Jun insists on his own and asks the teacher to take a book to himself. Despite his stubbornness, a dream but still accepts the book and thanks the young master. Baek Jun was surprised how much a teacher could give up the desired. Having received a book, she shone like a star. But he had another item that he could use on his own. He did not want to ask directly for help, so he began to say that he did not understand how to use this subject. Sleepe suggests that in his hand he has a magic circle of training. Baek Jun replies that he does not know anything about him, he just found him on the basis of the Stogler. But it was not just an artifact or a book of skills, but a consumed item that could be installed. Its installation was quite simple. It was only necessary to choose a suitable place and fill the sheet with mana. This required a significant amount of mana, as well as the skill of its possession, but for the teacher, this was not difficult. Baek Jun himself could try to use it, but it was likely that he would not have enough mana. After all, even a Dream A, despite her skills, spent a large number of mana on activation. Baek Jun thanks the teacher. Now he will be able to quickly and efficiently train to control mana. He also says that he does not mind if the dream is a circle at his discretion, and offers to try it right now. The son of Ming joins them and is a little surprised at the changes in the room. He also tells the young master that tomorrow guests from the Magic Tower will come to the clan of the Holy Sword. Baek Jun was surprised. They would come before he expected, assuming that the visit is related to the verification of the transport circle magic. The son of Ming adds that perhaps the young master already knows that his former bride, Jean with Yeon Nem, will come with them. At first, Baek Jun did not attach much importance to his words, not fully understanding their essence. But suddenly he will overshadow him, and he recalls what kind of former bride we are talking about. The son of Min says this is wonderful because they have not seen her for so long. But for Baek Jun, this news was not as joyful as for his servant. For him, tomorrow's meeting becomes special.